May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be pleasing in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Please be seated. Embedded at the end of the Episcopal funeral liturgy, we find these words. All of us go down to the dust, and yet even at the grave we make our song. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia. Here on Transfiguration Sunday, the last Sunday before Lent, we enact a well-worn tradition of the Church as we cease to sing and say Alleluia during Lent, as we wait for it to be proclaimed again amid the celebration of Easter, bursting forth from its captivity, just as Christ broke out of the tomb. And so on this day, as we prepare to press ashes in one another's foreheads on Wednesday, as we prepare to enter this season of Holy Lent, these words are echoing. All of us go down to dust. Yet even at the grave we make our song, Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia. Now, some of you here can attest to the fact that I never can make it through those lines when we are putting a beloved to rest without my voice catching. That as we recommit to the earth those beloveds amongst us, waves of loss and grief and lament and mourning come up as we are reminded of our own and our loved ones' mortality. But right there, embedded in this most tender moment of letting go, this depth of grief, we hear this promise, this claiming of this much bigger truth. Yet even at the grave, we make our song, Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia. In these words, we are held in that reality of grief and struggle and pain, being reminded that even in the most difficult times, there is something bigger than us. There is a vision and reality of God's kingdom which we long for and work for, that we hold on to. That we claim that even within our darkest times of struggle and pain, that the dawn is coming, resurrection is real, and we are not alone in any of it. It's the song that we heard in our gospel this morning. This dramatic text where we see Jesus transfigured and illuminated up on the mountaintop. Moses and Elijah, these towering figures of the faith, show up, and the disciples don't even know how to respond. Should we make them tents to sleep in? That was their best guess. Before they can even finish this best guess, a great cloud comes over them, and a loud voice echoes the words that we heard at Jesus' baptism. This is my son, the beloved, with whom I am well pleased. Now, most likely, the disciples Peter, James, and John weren't there at Jesus' baptism, but surely they had heard about this moment. And we do know that they were there just a few verses earlier when Jesus told his disciples, "If any of you want to be my followers, let them deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me." And so when they heard this voice from heaven, their response was to fall to the ground and be overcome by fear. But Jesus came. I picture him putting his hand on their shoulder or maybe reaching out for their hand and said, "Get up and do not be afraid." Now, from having conversations with at least some of you, I know that I don't think I'm alone some days, maybe most days these days, of wanting to just fall to the ground, cover my face with my hands, and totally give in to being overcome by fear. Anyone else out there? Okay, good. I mean, not good, but at least we're in it together. There is so much to be afraid of, to lament and to grieve. Yet that song that we sing at the grave, that song that is pressed into our foreheads in the dust we return to, this is the song that Jesus is singing as he gently leans over to his dearest disciples, takes their hand and says, "Get up and do not be afraid. Do the next right thing. Name and acknowledge all that you're afraid of, and then get up, because Jesus is calling us to continue singing that song of the world that God longs for." In just a few minutes, we're going to have this beautiful honor of baptizing baby Milo and speaking the words that were spoken over Jesus at Jesus' baptism. This is our beloved child, with whom we are well pleased. And we come to this sacred moment of baptism with joy and expectation, and that's rightly so. We're baptizing this amazing little human and surrounding him with the blessings of God and community to support him on his journey of faith. I would guess that this is a mountaintop moment for Milo and his family. But I bet if you ask Steph and Tyler, Milo's parents, or anyone who's ever cared for or observed children being cared for, that they would tell you that the bulk of raising a child is not a mountaintop moment. That the nurturing of this beloved child of God has a lot more to do with consistently being there when there are needs, changing diapers, troubleshooting feeding, researching strange rashes on WebMD in the middle of the night, which, P.S., our 8 o'clock service is a slightly older crowd, and nobody got that. I realized they all parented before WebMD. There was one other person in the room who was like, "Oh, I'm with you there." I was like, "Oh, I've dated myself." No matter how few hours of sleep that you got the night before, that the next right thing is to get up, right? Day after day after day. And I've been thinking that I think that parenting and following Jesus aren't really that far off from one another. That yes, we have those great moments of celebration and clarity. Maybe the first time our kid says, "I love you," or successfully heads off to college on their own. We have those sweet moments of connection that make the days worth it and bring us joy. In our spiritual lives, you have those moments like baptism this morning that are these mountaintop moments. Maybe a moment where you felt particularly close to the divine, or you felt particularly moved in community. There are those moments, but most of parenting and most of following Jesus, of being a person of faith, is getting up each day and doing that next right thing. Because even those mountaintop moments are only possible if we, even if we're quaking inside, listen to Jesus' words, "Do not be afraid," as we get up with those words singing in our ears. That no matter what is happening in our communities, in our families, in the world around us, we rest when we need to rest, and then we get up and we keep showing up. That we defy the forces that are telling us that hatred is more powerful than love, that death is more powerful than life. Because at the very heart of the movements of Christ, we are assured that even in the hardest times, even when we make our own grave, there is something to sing about. That there is a God who is bigger. There is a human community of love and resistance that is more powerful. There is a force of life that is forever stronger than death. This is the promise that we baptize Milo into. And it's the promise that we all begin our Lenten journey with. And it's the promise that we bury our alleluias, singing and knowing that resurrection is coming, and that even within our darkest nights, our darkest times, dear ones, that the dawn is coming. So as we prepare to bury our alleluias, we have this invitation to be present to those dynamics of grief and loss and lament, intermingled with love and hope, those strains of Alleluia that go down to the dust. We have that opportunity to remember that there is a bigger force of love that is with us and carries us on the journey. So as we prepare to bury our Alleluias, we're participating in a ritual that goes back to the 10th century of burying or locking the Alleluias away during Lent. And this year, we're going to do that by inscribing our prayers on the bookmarks. Does everyone have a bookmark and a writing utensil? If you don't, raise your hand and an usher will make sure that you have one. I know there's some kids over there that just came in that are going to definitely need them over there, and their teachers. So we are going to inscribe our prayers on these bookmarks, and then we're going to bury them in our hymnals. And if you really want to have fun, you can find some of the hymns that say Alleluia in them and bury your bookmark in those. It's not going to have, you don't have to put your name on it, and throughout Lent, you can add to these prayers. And on the Easter Vigil, we're going to bring them forward to the altar, we're going to pray them, and then we are going to share those in these Alleluia prayers together. As we are preparing to write our prayers, we're going to learn and sing a song together. This is a song that was written by Heidi Wilson and is now being sung by thousands and thousands of people, most particularly in the streets of Minneapolis and now across the nation. And the words go like this. They go, hold on, hold on, hold on, dear ones, here comes the dawn. There are people walking up and down the streets of Minneapolis singing this song to their neighbors who are sheltering in place. People are singing in churches and singing in Capitol buildings. They're singing to one another. It's the kind of song that holds true even when we go down to our graves. It's just as true as we baptize a beloved child as it is as we get up and do that next right thing, that we are reminded that we are surrounded by the love of God and that promise of dawn. So I invite Max to come down and teach us this song, and as we sing and throughout the service, I invite you to write your laments on one side and your hopes and prayers for this world that God longs for, as we together hold on, dear ones, because the dawn is coming.
I'm going to start with the part that isn't the melody, and then we're going to add the melody in, and it will be absolutely beautiful. The part that isn't the melody goes something like this. Hold on, my dear ones, here comes the dawn. Hold on, my dear ones, here comes the dawn. Hold on, my dear ones, here comes the dawn. Keep going, I'll sing the melody. Hold on, my dear ones, here comes the sun. Let's all try the melody. Hold on, my dear ones, here comes the dawn. One more time. Hold on, my dear ones, here comes the sun. And now, if you'd like to sing the harmony, or if you'd like to sing the melody, choose whichever feels right to you, and let's give it a try. Hold on, my dear ones, here comes the dawn. to teach one more part. We're learning them all today, and over the next few weeks, we're going to get really familiar. How about this? Let's have y'all keep doing exactly what you were doing, and I'm going to sing that new part. If you want to learn a new part, listen along. Here we go. Hold on, hold on, my dear ones, here comes the dawn. Hold on, hold on, my dear ones, here comes the dawn.